There are people who cry at commercials, at movies they've seen before, at songs on the radio, at kindness from strangers. And then there's everyone else who watches this happen and wonders what's wrong with them. Why are they so emotional? Why can't they just hold it together? But psychology suggests the question isn't why some people cry easily. It's what their emotional responsiveness reveals about how their nervous system processes the world. Because people who cry easily aren't weaker. They're wired differently. And that wiring comes with specific psychological traits that most people never notice. Here's the first thing to understand. Crying isn't just an emotional response. It's a physiological one. When someone experiences strong emotion, their autonomic nervous system activates, heart rate changes, breathing shifts, and for some people, tears follow almost immediately. Psychologists call this high emotional reactivity. It's not a disorder, it's a temperament. Research shows that some people have what's called a low threshold for emotional arousal. That means it takes less stimulation to trigger a strong emotional response. Their nervous system isn't broken, it's just calibrated differently. Like volume control, some people's emotional volume is set to 5. These people's emotional volume is set to 8. And this isn't something they chose, it's neurological. There's a specific framework that explains a lot of this. Sensory processing sensitivity. About 15 to 20% of people are what psychologists call highly sensitive persons, or HSPs. They process sensory and emotional information more deeply than others. They don't just notice emotions, they absorb them. They pick up on subtle facial expressions, tone shifts, environmental tension, things that others miss entirely. And all that processing creates emotional intensity, which often leads to tears. Not because they're fragile, because they're taking in more information than most nervous systems can handle without some kind of release. Crying in this case isn't weakness, it's regulation. Some people have strong emotional boundaries. They can witness suffering, conflict, or joy without it affecting their own emotional state. But people who cry easily often have what psychologists call permeable boundaries. Other people's emotions seep through. If someone near them is sad, they feel sad. If someone is happy, they feel it too. They can't compartmentalize emotions the way others can. This isn't empathy in the traditional sense. Empathy is understanding someone else's feelings. Emotional permeability is experiencing them as if they're your own, which explains why they might cry at a sad movie scene when no one else does. They're not overreacting. They're literally feeling it more intensely. Here's something counterintuitive. People who cry easily are often better at emotional regulation than people assume. Crying is a form of emotional release. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms the body down. It releases endorphins and oxytocin, which reduce stress. So when they cry, they're not losing control, they're regaining it. People who suppress tears often experience prolonged physiological arousal. The emotion stays trapped, the stress lingers. The person who never cries might be holding more emotional tension than the person who cries daily. But here's the reality. Society doesn't reward emotional expressiveness. People who cry easily are often told they're too sensitive, too emotional, too much. They're told to toughen up, to get it together, to stop being so dramatic. And this creates a psychological conflict. Their nervous system is telling them to release emotion, but the social environment is telling them to suppress it. Over time, many learn to hide their tears, to excuse themselves, to cry alone, not because they stopped being emotional, because they learned that their natural response makes other people uncomfortable. Here's what people get wrong. They assume crying means sadness. But people who cry easily don't just cry when they're sad. They cry when they're overwhelmed, frustrated, moved, grateful, angry, relieved. Tears for them are a general release valve, not an emotion-specific one. So when they cry during an argument, it doesn't mean they're hurt. It might mean they're frustrated and their body needs to release the intensity. But because others interpret tears as sadness, they get misread. So, what does psychology tell us about people who cry easily? They're not emotionally unstable. They're emotionally responsive. They're not weak. They're wired for depth. They're not dramatic. They're processing the world at a level of intensity most people don't experience. Their tears aren't a problem to fix. They're a feature of a nervous system that feels deeply, processes quickly and releases openly. And while that comes with challenges, social judgment, misunderstanding, emotional exhaustion, it also comes with something else. They notice things others miss. They connect in ways others can't. They experience beauty, joy, and meaning with an intensity that makes life richer, even when it's harder. The question isn't why some people cry easily. It's why we've decided that crying is something to apologize for in the first place. Because maybe the people who tear up at small things aren't the ones who are too sensitive. Maybe they're just the ones who haven't learned to numb themselves yet. So, which part of this resonated? Drop a comment about it. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more if this speaks to you. And also if you want to understand more psychology facts behind why we are the way we are.